This video is going to be about why you should fire the abusive people at your workplace exclusively. And I mean everybody. I understand some of you might be watching this and it will have in the title fascism, Trump, everybody, including you and me. We are repeating history from several countries, not just Nazi Germany. Again, it's a little over 100 years later, but not that much or less, depending on what historian you talk to. Fascism is a cult. So is the KKK and any other ideologically driven group of people that base things on race, which is the reason that a lot of people immediately assume that anyone on the opposite end of the spectrum must also be in a cult and or be doing some sort of race-based ideology, which I would agree as being accurate in some cases. Just like in some cases, some of the people you're dealing with running the government of the United States right now are overtly obvious fascists. A meeting a little while ago destroyed any presumption that any reasonable person would have that our president and vice president aren't doing something on behalf of the Russian government. If you believe otherwise, I don't know why. If you'd like to correct me, I'm sure you will, whether I like it or not. But the point is, they're trying to make it obvious they're on Putin's side. Constantly repeating that Russia was antagonized into a war after they started this war in like 2014 or earlier to take over Crimea. This is no different than any other group of individuals that run a very large, successful country that insist on getting a sneer on their face, acting like that crazy neighbor you never want to think of again, and doing some shit to push limits. Yeah, it's the bad neighbor here. It's that guy who decides he's going to build his fence on your side of the fence line to steal some of your dirt just for the purpose of fucking with you. That's what I'm equating this with. And I'm going to get hell for it because I'm going to say several countries, including ones you may support, do the same shit, including the United States at one time or several times in history. Well, that's just human nature. No, it fucking isn't. So let's go back to the workplace. Every one of you knows about somebody who decided to have their own little fiefdom, as it's called, at work, where they have power over something and can be abusive and do it under the guise of enforcing the rules. Every one of you can watch 100 fucking videos in a row of somebody with a gun and a badge doing the same bullshit about something that doesn't matter and should never invoke the presumption of deadly force. If you're not aware of it, that term, presumption of deadly force, or threat of deadly force, used in court cases, is not comfortable for the legal system because that's the whole fucking point of a police officer having a exposed weapon. Under the laws in other countries, where they don't let the police overtly carry a firearm, it's a presumed threat. They acknowledge the obvious fact that it's a form of intimidation. Police will use pain complaints. That means torturing you into submission. They use the expression agitated delirium because the people who made the taser, the inventors of the original taser, needed an excuse in court and found some psychiatrist or whatever to make up a term that sounded science-y. No, it's that the police kill you because there's a presumption of a deadly threat. Okay, now that we're done with that, but it's not a police officer. It's Jeff in the mailroom. Yeah. And the presumption of a deadly threat is called a hostile work environment or hostile living environment or hostile political environment. But I don't care what you're going to say any more than any of you arguing down below in the comment section by the 4-minute and 55-second mark are going to say that I should listen to you. I'm not listening to you either. You're doing it based on literally wide-eyed, oh my God, he's saying something I can't tolerate existing in the universe, versus me saying, I'm simply not going to listen to you because I've heard it already. Some of you are more reasonable than others, but you're rare. But let's talk about this rather simply. Donald Trump is a Russian asset. No, I'm not talking about something that is easily debunked about some former Soviet blah, 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 not offering evidence. He's behaving like a Russian asset. He's a Manchurian candidate, whatever you want to call it. By the way, that last thing is very inaccurate, but you can call him whatever you want to. They're making it obvious they wish to be perceived as an asset to the Russian government and to Putin. Yes, it was an attack interview. No country on this planet should trust the U.S. government until all of the people appointed by Trump and approved of by the Republican Party, the Russian Party, that had done the same talking points, that did the same dog whistles. No one in this world should trust the United States at all and literally state, no, we're not going to do any deals with you. Why? Because you can't be trusted, and then just show them a picture of Trump. And around him, all the other people he put in place that are really hard to remove. They're embedded ticks. They're parasites. No, Doge isn't making things efficient. They're putting the money in a slush fund and then diverting it to projects run by whoever's running Doge. You're in the middle of a fascist takeover. This is exactly what happens. We're following the rules here. Well, they're violating them. They're hacking. They're taking the rules and working around them. If your opponent refuses to follow the rules, stop obeying the rules yourself. That means that on a county by county level, and it's a lot of work, you have to make these, it's totally not worth it, votes that everybody's going to fight you over because they know damn good and well it is going to have an effect, where you state this city and this county repudiate the will and actions of the entire Trump administration and everyone associated, even loosely. And everybody who doesn't do it, you tell them you either do it or you're on everyone else's shit list. A little under or a little over 50% of the population in this country are very angry with our government right now. But that's not going to have an effect. And yet you're going to see a shit ton of people desperate to keep you from being allowed to vote, being allowed to get a petition out, being allowed to make it to where each city, county, and state publicly denounces this behavior and the entire package that came with it. I'm in a workplace. We have a mid-level person who just got promoted. It's nepotism. It's whatever reasoning that isn't reasonable. Comes in and says, you're going to learn to do everything my way, and if you don't do what I tell you, you're fired. Remember, all I'm doing is working the phones. I haven't worked as a computer security technician, hacker, in 3 years at that point. The next day he finds out that every one of his secret emails about what he's going to try to do because he's working for a competing company suddenly become visible when people log in on his day off, along with a list of who was responsible for hiring this dick. Penetration tester. I used to have that as a t-shirt. It's a joke we wiggle our eyebrows about. Like the dongle jokes you might have reacted to violently maybe 5 or 10 years ago. Somebody remember that bullshit. Dongle gate. We're not allowed to make jokes. Everybody's a snowflake. Everybody's triggered. Stating that Donald Trump has overtly broken federal law will trigger people. Melt, little snowflakes. We want your tears. We're thirsty. Yes, just like somebody hired to break into a company. I've been the infiltrator. I was paid to do that to an opposing company. And then when I figured out what was really going on, I told them, yeah, I was hired to work here as a mole to find out what you do here. And I found out the reason they're doing it is they're putting a bunch of people here as well to sabotage it. I don't sabotage. They were just saying that I was supposed to come in here to look for violations of copyright or some other damn thing. They're not. They're hiring people to come in here and break things. That's illegal. It's called industrial espionage. Here's a list of them. How do you know about it? Because they knew me from the meeting and they talked to me about what they were really doing. And I recorded them. Here's the tape. And then I left. I went back and said, yeah, I got fired. I told them to officially list me as fired. And then that company got ran through the ringer, which used to happen when you broke a law as a corporation. And Nextel lost a bunch of money quietly. If you look it up, you can find it. It's a federal decision. Or was it AT&T? I forget which one. It was all of them. Because it ballooned out of control because originally it wasn't AT&T or Nextel. It was another company. But all of them were guilty of it. Does that make it any better? Is that how the business should work? WAPTEC, what is this all about? On a basic level, at one point or another, Donald Trump was that asshole who couldn't do anything at work that got put in a managerial position because he couldn't do normal work. Judging someone by their merit is the only basis for you getting a minimum wage job and keeping it, unless you know somebody. Getting promotion is never based on that. It just isn't. You're promoted to a job based on these skills you're now no longer going to use. Most people who are in a managerial position are put in place because they can make people do stuff. Abusive sociopaths and antisocial personality disorder sufferers who make everyone else suffer from their illness. Those are the people who get promoted. Time and time again when I was hired to find who was fucking up things at work. When I was paid to come in as an entry-level person, I have a shit ton of jobs where I worked for a month, literally 1 month, and was paid a shit ton of money, but that was as an LLC. To find out why your company is got something wrong with it and you keep having lawsuits, I would come in and say, you already know I'm going to publish this publicly because that's one of my deals. You either act on it and fix it, or you're going to be sued by every former employee, and you better hire them all back. The presumption in the room, in most cases, if they ever hired me, was obviously that was going to happen. They just want to know who was doing it. And I'd point out, in almost every fucking case, the son of a boss that did it. District manager's son or daughter, or maybe the CEO, explaining that that's why the call is going to include them. And then the bellowing and yelling would start from someone. And I say, your relative isn't you. You don't know their behavior. You know what you would do. They're not doing it. Audio video recordings have been forwarded to you. And that time it was literally, video cassettes. I'd record them using computer equipment, which was a brand new concept. I just used the stupid little webcams and do it. And run it through a translator. I had a box for that. And then I get a contact later. We don't want to discuss this. And I said, it is out. It will be posted on the internet. Fire your son or daughter. Now. Publicly. Or the investors are going to fucking remove you from position. And they would do exactly what I told them. I am not joking about bossing around Fortune 500 companies at the time. No, really. And there are a few failures. But I'm under gag order. No, I'm not. The few failures were for a couple of tech firms which don't exist anymore because they ran themselves out of business by continuing bad behavior. And right now, we're in a situation where we've done the same shit to ourselves. You are presented with an obvious sociopath. Some of you chose not to vote. Oh, I'm in a state where it doesn't matter. Doesn't change anything. It wouldn't have swung the vote. Yes, it would have. I'm not explaining why. You let it happen, now you got to fix it. How do we fix it? You start at the lowest level and get rid of everyone like that. It's a personality type. Stop hiring them, except at low-level positions where they can bitch all day, have a beer at the end of the day, and it only goes as far as them yelling about it at the bar. They never take it further. Now we have a big mess that's going to end up like it did in the 19-whatevers. I don't want a second world war. Do you? Is it important enough now that we stop doing this at the base level? Every abusive piece of shit, you fire them, you punish them, you make them change, because that's how society bends them to our will. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. You will need it.